of it has been a practice in like, again, like tuning into that inner wisdom and learning how to hear it in a different way. Like I know that it's like forceful within me. Like I feel like there is some powerful clarity within me, but I've trained myself to just lean on my mind, right? And my discernment. And yes, that's powerful as well, but I want to bring those two back into harmony. Because I feel like that's where the real power is, as opposed to like for me, over indexing on the mind. But the interesting thing about it though is this idea of agency. And I feel like if I hadn't actually found my way through the discernment, I don't know that I'd be able to engage with the astrology as powerfully because there is this sense of it's like understanding the context and then seeing your own agency to show up and navigate it in any way that you please. Like there is this power in it that like if you haven't actually claimed it for yourself or seen it in yourself, then you can feel like you're at the mercy of the astrology, you know? And so
Yeah.
it's there's almost
How have you, I'm
yeah.
curious, how have you navigated that? If there was initial hesitation or doubt about the astrological piece, like what was your journey there in terms of
Well,
embracing that more and then
uh,
kind of using it as a tool?
it's almost that like opening up and softening. And I think it had to be in the way that you described this backward looking, like reading something of the past and saying, damn, well, that was really spot on. And then thinking about, well, what am I reading now? Like I'll look at what I'm reading now and it will sometimes give some credence or like, sort of affirm some things I'm feeling. And it's just that kind of, it enables me to trust what my gut is telling me that much more. Like something felt off. It felt like I needed to rest. Huh, this is saying it as well. It's sort of that said that like sort of like second check that makes me feel more comfortable relaxing into what my body is wanting anyway, right? Because I'm a person of force and like push, 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 and like the sense of like I want to be somewhere. And so to do that, this is my thought sense of how I need to move to get there.
Mhm.
This creates some permission for me to actually continue to lean into how I'm feeling a little bit more
Yeah.
and trust that. So that's how
Yeah.
I've been working with it because that's how it's been showing up for me.
Yes, that is so interesting. I think what you said about like the backwards looking approach and
Mhm.
you're validating an a methodology or a tool or an approach for yourself
Mhm.
by getting cues or looking at if it worked, like anything that like
Exactly.
actually there is something I can take from it. And I think that is a really helpful way to frame it for people that might want to explore these of like look back and see if there are any tools that helped you in your life or just give it a try and test it for yourself. Because I think a lot
Mhm.
of people don't go about it because other people tell them like this is the thing that will provide you with all the answers. And then naturally, I mean, I'm a data-driven person. I would be suspicious. I've come
Yeah.
to be more open to just also trusting the universe and trusting what happens. But
You're
I
embracing grandma's crystals. You're
yeah, I'm
embracing
embracing grandma's crystals now. In full circle back to my female lineage.
it.
Um, but I think there's a broader point also in the power of self like reflection, looking backwards and maybe making sense a little bit of what happened, which brings me to the topic of a year-end review
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
looking like forward into the next year. But I think that year-end review, if it's done in the right way, can provide you insights that are not only, you know, um, an assessment of if you reach your goals. Like it's not just a checklist based achievement focused review. I do think it can deliver on what you said is that can it be both for your heart and your mind and
Mm.
look at if you maybe grew on a more holistic level.
It's so funny too because I was talking to somebody just this past week, um, and she was saying how just talking about this idea of being caught in the same cycles, caught in the same patterns. And I think we can be so hard on ourselves sometimes because it can truly feel like it's just the, oh, damn it, making the same mistakes. But when you do look back with that closer lens, you can see the ways you've grown, right? And I think that taking that moment to take stock of the ways that you've actually expanded and how, yes, it might be the same pattern, but you're moving through it with learning, right? And there's something that's changing and evolving in you. And so while it may from like a bird's eye view look the same, there's growth happening. And if we can continue to give ourselves grace, we can continue to progress, right? And move forward. Because I think it's so critical to embrace what you've achieved and take a moment and pause and celebrate that. Because without that, I don't know, like I find it hard to just motivate myself only through like self-flagellation, right? Like at a certain point, like you have to be motivated. It's what we talked about before, being pulled towards something more beautiful and believing yourself to be worthy of it. And if you're always beating yourself up and focused on the ways that you've failed, that's almost inherently in conflict with viewing yourself with love and as worthy and letting that be the thing that pulls you to continue to being better. I don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. It makes me think about our idea of crafting a, either a like a session or a program to go through something like this, right? With year-end review and looking forward of what you want to bring forth in 2026. What, and we looked at some questions we could use to facilitate that. What do you think are the most powerful questions to get at what you just said? And it could be just a collection of 2 or 3 questions that allow you to look back at 2025 and understand how you've grown, but from a more, holistic perspective, like
Yeah.
body, mind, and soul in a way of, a similar lens.
No, it's funny. To me, it ended up not being a question. And so I'll take a step back. Caveat will be that, of course, I'm bounded by the things I've been looking at. And so
Mhm.
it influences the ideas that are coming to me in this moment. But there was something so powerful about this really tactical exercise of looking at a calendar month to month and just going through the year and thinking a bit like, what was that month about? And like, what were the struggles? And just sort of understanding the full arc of the story, right? Because I think we can sometimes forget those little hyper links of growth that has happened across like along the way because you're just focused on where you are now and how far you still are from whatever goal you have in mind. And so there was something really powerful about this idea of truly sitting down with your calendar and thinking for a moment about like what the journey has been. Um, so as opposed to a specific question resonating, it was more that process. And then maybe from there, it's a question of like, well, what were those big moments and like what the things that you're proudest of in that journey? Like, you can pull out the gems from that. But for me, fundamentally anchoring it in a process that really is about looking at the year in its little chunks and progression and seeing the journey that seemed powerful to me.
What I like about how you're framing this is that when you look at each month, you look at your whole self versus looking at a sliver of your life, which I think can sometimes happen with those exercises
Oh,
because
it
you
gets compartmentalized. Yeah.
compartmentalize or you chunk yourself up into my professional self, my my parent self, you almost like subdivide it, and it can be helpful. But I think what you're describing as well, you look yourself as a whole person in each of those months, and I think that can give you an insight on how you're growing.
Mm. I like what
Mhm.
you said too from a sense of like ebb and flows of priorities too, because like, there are these things that we want for ourselves across different dimensions of our lives, and it's always important to sort of keep that in mind. But it's not always possible to be firing along all those cylinders in any given moment. And so looking actually, that's a great ad, like looking at the arc of the year and how you sort of may have flowed between the different priorities and sort of what led you to move almost having a clearer sense of where your focus shifted and what the drivers were and letting that even be something that comes from a place of more intention going forward. Like when there was a shift, was it a shift that I actually consciously wanted, or was it something that I got pushed into? And if I did get pushed into that, getting curious about what those factors were in an effort to be able to be more in better alignment going forward, right? Because you're able to then anticipate what those pressures and stressors will be so that you can then navigate them differently going forward. I
Yes.
like that combination.